All right, so let's talk a little bit about this thing that happened with Ro Khanna the other day. Now, let me just say up front, everybody knows I like Ro Khanna. I think he's one of the best Congress people that we have. I think his voting record is one of the best as well. Every now and then he does something that I really don't like, but the majority of the time he votes the way I would vote if I was there. So this isn't an attempt to besmirch anybody or cancel anybody or whatever. This is just to talk about what I think is an important issue, which is free discourse, open dialogue, what's reasonable, what's not reasonable, and all that. So Ro Khanna did some sort of interview or conversation or discussion with Bill Kristol. And so let me go ahead and show you what he said about that. Bill Kristol is one of the most thoughtful voices in defending liberalism and democratic institutions in our country. Learned a lot in our conversation about shaping also an inclusive narrative around American patriotism. So, I saw that, and my response was, he's a war criminal. And I say that because he's a war criminal. He was one of the top people at the Project for a New American Century, which is a neocon think tank, which were effectively the architects of the Iraq War. I know who Bill Kristol is. You know who Bill Kristol is. He's got a long history. His main issue, what he's made his main issue is regime change and imperialism and spreading democracy around the world by sometimes overthrowing democratic countries. Iraq's not democratic, to be clear, but overthrowing democratic countries and putting into place U.S.-backed puppet dictators. That's who Bill Kristol is. Now, the reason why all of a sudden he's allowed in these liberal circles is because he's also anti-Trump. What people don't understand is the reasons he doesn't like Trump. He doesn't like Trump because of the lack of a filter and the potty mouth and the inability to be polite and civil, the inability to put the veneer over the grossness of American empire. That's why he doesn't like Trump. He doesn't like Trump because every now and then Trump used to say, I'll protect Social Security, Medicare, and I won't outsource your jobs. Now, by the way, he did outsource your jobs, but he used to say these pseudo-populist things, and Bill Kristol was offended and appalled by that. And he's offended and appalled when Trump used to pretend like he was in favor of ending wars. That's why Bill Kristol didn't like Trump. It had nothing to do with, real, intelligent, good reasons to hate Trump. Like the fact that he was a servant of Wall Street. He destroyed the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. All of the things about Trump that you should have an issue with are things that Bill Kristol actually liked about Trump. But since he's so critical against Trump, and now he's on liberal networks, all of a sudden he's allowed in these liberal circles. So I want to be clear about something. My issue is not at all that Ro Khanna decided to speak to Bill Kristol or have a conversation or discussion or a podcast with Bill Kristol. I'm of the opinion you should talk to whoever you want to talk to and don't talk to whoever you don't want to talk to. You do what you want. It's a free country. You do what you want, and I'll support your decision on that front. My issue is it is not factual and not accurate how he's being described. He's not a thoughtful voice in defending liberalism and democratic institutions. He's a person who absolutely obliterated a foreign country that did not attack us. He is partly responsible for the destruction of Iraq. A thought leader in this illegal and offensive war against a country that didn't attack us, which led to hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians being killed and torture happening. Even the management of the war post-overthrowing Saddam was incredibly destructive. They fired everybody who was a Ba'athist. Basically, the entire government was immediately let go, which led to increased tensions among the Sunni and Shia in the region. Because Saddam was Sunni and Iraq is barely, but majority Shia. I think it's like 60% Shia. Saddam was Sunni, and they overthrew him. They got rid of all the Baathists, and then they brought in, effectively a Shia leader. And led to increased sectarian tensions, and the U.S. is greatly responsible for that. So everything about this guy, he's not a protector of democratic institutions. He's the exact opposite. He's an imperialist, neoconservative thug. A thug. That's what he is. And so my issue is not that Ro Khanna talked to him. You're allowed to talk to him. My issue is you're describing him as a thoughtful voice in defending liberalism and democratic institutions. In other words, you are helping to whitewash his record and clean the Iraqi blood off his hands. And that in my opinion, is unforgivable. And then, so Bill Kristol also tweeted, I'm back in the office after stimulating lunch with Ro Khanna, and see, he's tweeted about it, which is fine, but not with some on the left. I'm sure Ro can take the heat. As for me, I benefited from our talk and admired Ro's willingness to argue and occasionally gasp, agree. Again, I can only speak for myself here. I'm not a spokesperson for the left, but my issue is not that Ro talked to you. He could talk to you every day for all I care. You know, you could do a podcast with him. You could hash out all your disagreements, whatever. My issue is the way you were described was factually inaccurate, and it helps to whitewash your horrendous record. Bill Kristol, we used to do segments on this show. Bill Kristol, I think, holds the world record for being wrong about shit. I wish I had the segment queued up right now, but I remember going through like a list of every prediction he made that was dead wrong, and it was hilarious because it was never ending. He's wrong about everything. And Ro calls him a thoughtful voice in defending liberalism and democratic institutions. He's a complete idiot who failed up his entire life. His daddy was political, and obviously he's massively political, and his whole thing is like, shouldn't the U.S. run the world? So I don't agree with how he's being described. So I just want to be clear again, this has nothing to do with canceling anybody. Ro Khanna's voting record is his voting record, and there's most of the stuff there is correct and good, and he deserves credit for that. That's why I've done 1,000 segments on Ro Khanna where we give him credit. But this is a swing and a miss. And the final point I'll make is this, and this is really important. I hope everybody, really takes, if you take anything away from this segment, it should be this. Let people can talk to whoever they want to talk to, can not talk to whoever they don't want to talk. That's all fine. That's all fine. But what you need to do is have the conversation or the discussion reflect the reality of the person's record or beliefs. So, in other words, and we run into this all the time with Crystal Kyle and friends, with how we do our podcast there. Most of the people who we talk to are just people who we're genuinely interested in, and they don't have too many concerning beliefs, and they don't have, a record of war crimes or whatever the fuck. That's the other thing. War crimes aren't just disagreements, and I hate it when people portray it as such. But so for Crystal Kyle and friends, most of the things are just smooth conversations, because the people who we're talking to, it merits just a smooth conversation. Because we don't have colossal disagreements. They don't have some abysmal record. And so you can have a smooth conversation and it's all fine and dandy. Then there are some people who it's sort of a middle ground approach you have to take. So for example, when we had on Andrew Yang, yeah, we agreed with him where we agree with him. For example, we think the media always treated him unfairly and smeared him, because they did. And so we talked about that. But also, he said some horrendously atrocious things about Israel-Palestine. So what do? We brought it up, and we talked to him about it, and we pressed him on it. You want to know why? Because we don't agree with him on that, and we think he's way off base, egregiously off base, where it's morally reprehensible what his beliefs were. So we had to press him on that, and we did. And we did, and guess what? It was uncomfortable, but it's what we had to do. We had a responsibility to do it. And then other people, by the way, who you might want to engage with, have nothing but a hideous record, who are wrong about virtually everything and have terrible things in their past and have a terrible political record. If you engage with those people, I would hope that virtually the entire conversation is sort of, not amicable. You butt heads. You push back. You disagree strongly. You make clear that you think the person is wrong. You hash everything out, but you stick by your principles and your beliefs, and you explain where you think the person is horribly off base. So in other words, some interviews have to be standoffish, because it all depends on the person's beliefs and their record. Now, I haven't really had many discussions with people like that, who I think their beliefs are just atrocious. I haven't really had that many conversations with them. I'm not really as interested in talking to them, because I know it's just all it is going to be strife and disagreement and talking over each other's heads. But sometimes you have to have, nothing but a standoffish debate with somebody. All depends on their record. Some people, it's the middle ground. Some of the stuff you're going to agree with them, it's going to be lovely, and other things you're going to have to really hold them accountable. And then other people, it's the smooth conversation. Now, I wasn't in the room for Bill Kristol and Ro Khanna, so I don't know exactly how the conversation went. But my contention is, Bill Kristol is one of those people where it should be pretty much nothing but adversarial the whole time because he's wrong about 95% of stuff. So that's how I would treat a conversation or a debate with Bill Kristol. 95% disagreement, holding him accountable the whole time, going over the things we disagree with. My issue is I think what Roe did is he put him in the 50-50 category. It was like half complete agreement and then half, okay, I disagree with you on your war crimes, which is not strong enough, But the half where he agreed was terribly inaccurate, and that's my issue with it. The half where he agreed, you heard what he said, thoughtful leader on democratic institutions or whatever. It's like, no, he's not. No, he's not. So don't, because I saw what Roe's response was to this when the left was coming after him. Like, oh, everybody's trying to cancel me. He said something like that to Glenn, like, oh, I thought you weren't in favor of cancel culture. And Glenn accurately responded, this has nothing to do with cancel culture. I'm not trying to kick anybody off social media here. I'm not trying to, deplatform you or censor you or anything. You can say whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. The issue here is his record is horrendous, and you're not accurately reflecting that. And so this goes across the board, guys. Never, I guess my point is it's got to all be accurate. Don't ever overstate your agreements with people who you actually don't have agreements with or that many agreements with, and don't understate it. It's just got to all be accurate and reflect the reality of the situation, the reality of the person's political beliefs, and the reality of their record. And really what you see now is people usually fall into one or two camps, which is treat everybody as adversarial or treat everybody as like completely agreeable and look for that 3% agreement and disregard the 97% terrible shit. So anyway, that's my breakdown of it. I hope Roe maybe learned something from this, but it is what it is.